oftentimes the Spirit of God would tell us, leave that relationship, leave that friendship, leave that environment, leave that place. But we find it so hard because we think that we have the best thing right there. No. Sometimes we have certain people in our lives, and just by their mere presence, life seems to be going very well for us. And oftentimes we realize that when we separate from people like that, things begin to not quite go well. Now, today's day we'll be diving into the story of a man who literally experienced that. And not just that, I will be giving you 2 lessons from this story that you can apply to your life as a child of God to ensure that you stay in sync with your divine helpers. Now, welcome back to our Discern, so we step into ancient stories with a modern heart. To make sure that you're in sync with all the greatness happening on this channel, I want you to go ahead and click that subscribe button. If you haven't already, make sure you like and also leave comments as we go along. Let's get into the story, shall we? The person from the Bible we will be talking about today is a man named Lot. For those of you who are not familiar with the name Lot, Lot is the nephew of Abraham. And if you're not familiar with the name Abraham, Abraham is a man who God literally promised that his descendants will be as numerous as the stars in the sky. So basically he said, if you cannot count the amount of stars up there, that is how your descendants are going to be. And basically the song, Father Abraham had many sons. Yes, this is kind of like a Nigerian song, but it was coined from the story of Father Abraham. Now, Lot, on the other hand, is the nephew of Abraham. One thing that Lot did right in his life was that he associated himself with Abraham. When Abraham was Abram, and the Lord called him out of his father's house back in Haran, Lot went with Abraham. So he basically stayed with Abraham all through the time. He left home with Abraham. Now they got to a place where, because they were together, these 2 men, they basically excelled. Lot had lots of properties, he had cattle. Abraham had lots of possessions as well. Now it came to a time where, because they had so much together, they became, we'll say seeing some friction. Some friction was introduced in this story, and Abraham told Lot, hey, I pray thee, because we're having so much friction, you may depart. So look around and choose wherever you want to go, and I will go the other way. When Abraham told Lot this, Lot looked around, and when he saw a certain place, he was like, oh, this place looks so good. And I'm telling you, the place looked so good on paper. It looked beautiful. Now, when he chose the place with the intention that, oh, this place looks good, so I'm going to be able to flourish in here. And he went towards that place. Now, that place turned out to be Sodom. And if you're familiar with the name Sodom, you know Sodom and Gomorrah. They had a lot of atrocities being committed in that place, and the Lord did not like it at all. Now, of course, Lot had moved over there. Lot pitched his tent outside of Sodom, and before you know it, he was kind of already inside of Sodom. Even though Lot was inside of Sodom, it did not mean that Lot was a bad person, because Lot was still, all the things that he learned when he was walking with Abraham, he didn't forsake all those things. It just happened to be in the wrong location. And this can happen to us a lot of times when we find ourselves in the wrong location, places we shouldn't have been in the first place. Now, how did this affect Lot? And why are we even talking about the story of Lot? It came to pass that at a point in time, God was like, the atrocities of Sodom and Gomorrah is ridiculously high, so he's going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham, being a friend of God, was like, oh Lord, if you find this amount of righteous people, would you destroy it? And the angel of God would be like, no, I would destroy it. If you find this amount of people, would you destroy it? The angel of God would be like, no, I won't destroy it. It came down to the number around 10. Like if I'm able to find 10 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah, I would not destroy it. But turns out there wasn't even up to 10 people there, righteous people in Sodom. So on a fateful day, 2 angels was on their way to Sodom to destroy the place. Now, Lot met with his angels on the way, he saw them. So he called them to come into his house, and he was like, I pray thee, rest and dine and everything. And they finally accepted. While the angels were inside of the house of Lot, the men of the area came and they started knocking on the door. Why were they knocking at the door? When they were knocking on the door, they said, bring out the people that are in your house so we can have our way with them. Now, this is the Bible's way of basically, the men were requesting for the men to come out so that they can do unthinkable things to them. And Lot was like, oh, please don't do this. Of course, these people are under my roof. And he even offered up his own two daughters to the men outside. The men were like, no, bring the people out, not knowing that they were dealing with angels. So the angels pulled Lot in and they struck everybody out there with blindness. Yes, all the men that came, like the wicked men from Sodom, they were blind. So the angel was like, there's too much going on here. The Lord sent us to destroy this place. You have to go. Lot was kind of like lingering. Lot was like, oh, let me go tell my son-in-laws, the people that would marry my daughter. When he went, he told the son-in-laws, they were like, haha, this man is kidding, right? Haha, we're not good with him. Now the angel took Lot, his wife, and two daughters and took them outside of the city. And the angels basically told them, flee to the mountains. You're going to be safe there. But Lot was like, oh, please don't let me go to the mountains. Let me go to the plains. Let me go somewhere else. Like, help me make it make sense. Lot found himself in this situation because he wanted to rely on his own understanding, because he chose the choicest parts of the town, right? But now he's still asking to be sent to somewhere similar. And this is what a lot of us do, and that's where our lessons will come in. So what happened was that the angels are like, all right, bet, go to where you want to go. On the way there, a lot of us are probably familiar with the story, but the wife turned back and turned to a pillar of salt, right? She was left there because why was she turning back? She had one job, go, let it go. But she turned back, turned to a pillar of salt. Now, what happened next was that wherever Lot went to with his daughters, they finally made their way to the mountains, but they lived in isolation. And the daughters ended up doing some unthinkable things like sleeping with their father. Two daughters slept with their father and they had children. Now, the children they had will later down the line become great enemies of Israel. Now, that is the story of Lot, and I know that was a lot. Here comes the lesson. Lesson number 1. Lot knew Abraham. Who do you know? Most of the time, we realize that because of the associations that we have or we make, we're either at an advantage or a disadvantage. The people that you surround yourself with matters. And even when Abraham called unto Lot and said, let's go our separate ways, Lot could have asked him like, hey, where do you think I should go? He could have asked for counsel, but he relied on his own intelligence, on his own knowledge to pick the choicest part of the land, which ended up not favoring him, and he ended up losing a lot from. So he knew Abraham at least, and that also ended up saving his life because he was able to discern when he saw angels. Who do you know? Who are those people in your life that with their connection, with their presence in your life, they've stirred you in the right direction? And when you identify those people, you know to cleave onto them a little bit more, right? Lesson number 2. Lot's wife looked back and didn't make it. What are you still holding on to that you should be letting go? Most of the times we realize that we're holding on to so much. It's almost like we're carrying so much on our back and all those things are not even needed. We should have let it go. Now, we're unsure of the kind of associations or friends that Lot's wife made while they were in Sodom. We don't know the kind of people that she was really with because that was the first time that her name was actually mentioned in the Bible. But for whatever reasons, the people that she left back at Sodom was enough to make her turn back when the angel said, run, when the angel said flee. So sometimes the Spirit of God would tell us, leave that relationship, leave that friendship, leave that environment, leave that place. But we find it so hard because we think that we have the best thing right there. No, when God says move, you move and don't look back. Do not keep carrying all those things that you don't need. Those are just extra baggages. Let it go and don't look back. Or do you want to turn to a pillar of salt? No? Okay. Bonus point. Lot chose alternatives instead of solutions. What are you choosing today? We find out that sometimes we end up choosing the thing that does not actually suffice. We want the temporary high, which is the alternative. The angel said, flee to the mountains, but he said, can I please go to the plains? When God says go for it and you're like, Lord, can I at least go for this little small thing first? No. Quit going for the alternatives when God has literally told you to chase after that solution. You might be the only person in your generation, in your family, in your lineage that will be able to achieve that stuff. But because you keep going for the alternatives, you keep going for the little highs, you don't want to face it head on. Sometimes you never actually get there. Do not be Lot in this story. But what we know from the story of Lot is that it is never okay to choose the alternative when the Lord has literally given you a split direction. Go no, do not say, Lord, please let me stay. Now, that is it for the story of Lot and the lessons that we can learn. Now, I hope this video has been able to impact you greatly. Do not forget, when you're faced with a choice of alternatives versus solution, always go for solution. Also, identify the people in your life that make things better, that make things easier, that make things seem like they make sense, and pray regarding those people and make sure that once you identify that they are the divine helpers that God has sent to you, treat them right and make sure that they are good with you. Be like 2 and 2, okay? Well, that is the end of our story today. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, I love you and God loves you more.